Hello and welcome to Live with Rex, episode 169. And tonight we are finally getting into it. We are going to build, and thankfully it's not set around as any of the last few things I've bought to live build. We are, and close this window over here. We're building this tonight. This is set 4502 X-Wing Fighter, released in 2004. They're going to fall. And trust me when I say I am excited to finally build this set. So I remember as a kid reading the Lego Star Wars Visual Dictionary and seeing this set and thinking it was the coolest thing ever. In fact, as a kid, I did actually have, because this set, by the way, I have to hold up, was on retail from 06 till 2010. I had this, and I would take these kind of swamp pieces, because I was able to get them in other sets, and add them to this. That's something I used to do as a kid. But kind of cool, and I have 3 Lego X-Wings. So apparently we're building up that Rebel army. Can I comfortable with this? I'm gonna go get a snack before we get set up. Plus, that gives people time to join in the stream. It's really cool, those boxes though. They went for the kind of Lego City-esque box design. I think that's pretty cool that they tried that. So that's a little bit set up. The table will be coming forward. I'll get my chair out and we'll just get building. I'm very, very excited to get this done though. Like, the X-Wing's cool, sure, but let's be honest. The main attraction here, as far as Lego sets go, or as far as this set goes, really, is that Yoda's hut. We have had Yoda's hut a couple of times since after this, we had to wait till 2018 to get it, and it was a playset. Then we got the 2022 diorama, and I think we got one this year as a smart playset. But I'm gonna go get a drink, get a snack, give people time to join in. Very excited. This stream I'm gonna try and keep under 2 hours long, just because I am up very early for work in the morning. So I'm gonna try and keep that in mind as well. Alright, I'm here. So we'll give it a minute. I'll have my sandwich here and we'll get started. But very excited to build this. Very cool set. It's a bit before it's like way before I got into the hobby. This set's from 2004. So yeah. One of the first boxes I've got like this, where they've got the wraparound print. Very cool set, you know, the way that they do the print on the top, where it wraps around. So, we're going to be building this. I'm going to quickly eat this and we're going to get started. This box was opened in the lid way at the back, so I need to balance it like that for just showcasing it. The parts and stuff are in there. And I think, by the way, it's a used copy, and I think, by the way, that we have the benefit of it being reverse bagged. Because we had a look into it on my unboxing video. Right. So we're going to move the table forward, right? It's enough so that I've got enough space to sit behind it with the chair. Getting another X-Wing, like I said, is cool, but it's the hut that I've always thought looked cool in this set. And as a kid, because like I was saying before, the X-Wing in this is more or less the same as this, with a few slight differences. I used to put like swamp pieces on this to make it look like the one in there. So, yeah. The one I was just holding is a 2006 model. Just fix the chair. There we go. Right. So, I apologise for the hair and that I look sweaty. It's been a really warm day. It's like, oh god, it's like record temperature today where I am. But yeah, very cool set. Very much looking forward to getting this one built. Hey, how's it going? Tell you one thing, this is probably the best live stream setup I've had, because you know you get to see the stuff behind me. That just makes it even better. So we'll give it a moment and then we'll get started looking into it. I am going to see if any of my usual copyright-free YouTubers have got any videos going. Right.
A lot of
But yeah, very cool set. Like I say, I was born in the early 2000s, so I didn't really start collecting Lego till the late 2000s. But sets like this are pretty cool. I've currently got a goal with Lego Star Wars sets, right? One of my favourite books of all time is the Lego Star Wars Visual Dictionary from 2009. And when I saw that book, I wanted to buy pretty much as much stuff from it as possible. And I'm kind of doing it with this.
guess what? Today.
Right, let's get my drink. And we're going to get started, right. 10 minutes into it started. So, like I said, this box was opened and not the way it has. Yeah, it's got a little. This did have thumb tabs at one point. So you got your instruction manual, which, oh man, this is back when we had the cool instruction manual. Brilliant. There's some cool advertising and stuff in the back of those. So there is some writing on the bags. So this one is just like an X-Wing wings part in this one. Hey, that's what's in this one. see what else is on. This one is like the cockpit and stuff. Next one. They have tried to write on the bag, but I'm not entirely sure what they've wrote. P38, take away 47. 502. Alright, this is a unique way of doing things. What's this one? Alright. That's a self-explanatory. This is the Yoda's Hut portion of the set. Alright, okay. Well, there. This is one of those boxes. Obviously, the back of it's a bit ruined, but the front of this thing is pretty pristine. Maybe I'll make that a display thing. But let's get these instructions out. I'm just curious. I want to see the ads in this again. I want to show it off during the stream before we get started, because this is back when Lego would put really cool posters and stuff in the back of the instruction manual. Check this. This is the back end. Obviously, you got 4502, which, you know, they've taken the weeds and stuff off, which is kind of funny. They've got August 2004 written on it. We've got the Falcon from then. We've got the Snow Speeder on this page. There's advertising August 1st, 2004 sets. Because the advertising back then was just that cool, and of course that brings us to here. So, starting off with this one, I'm basically going to check some 90% sure there's a bag, right, that contains just minifigure parts. We're going to start with that. Well, right. Ironically enough, it's the first one I grabbed. So the functions box with some parts in it. Right, I'm going to do what I normally do, and I've just remembered it's been well over a month since the last live build. What I like to do is to get a bit of Tupperware that's clear, pour the parts into it. Especially when I don't really do that for the most part when doing it with used sets, but just makes things easier. You may remember if you saw my live build of the 2008 80 AP that we did. So without ripping the entire cupboard apart, I found this one that I had. This is the one we use with the 80 AP. I'm not going to pour every bag into it at once, because I like doing long live streams, but also I have work very early tomorrow, so I do plan to do other things. Let's get the bag. So first bag of the 2004 X-Wing. Let's go. Oh yeah, because this is 2004, it's the old Lego Greys. Right, so let's get the minifigures assembled. So, the Luke Skywalker, right, is probably the main special minifigure in this set. I think he is actually probably the only special figure in this set, yeah. The Yoda, and the R2 sure as hell ain't, and the Yoda was in... This was Yoda's... This was the minifigure's second appearance. So that's Luke. I need to find the parts for his backpack. Funny enough, the tile piece, right, that he uses on his backpack is actually quite valuable. So, a tile piece, I'll show it later in the stream. But no, after all these years of seeing pictures of this and seeing reviews of it online, very happy to be building this. And again, like I said, I like the fact that because the set is from 04, it's all the old Lego colours. There we go. Oh, no, we dropped it. It's another cool one to add to the collection of old school minifigures I've got in the yellow. Hey there, we've now got the Luke Dagobah from 2004. I'm going to put them up there. Next up, where's Yoda's torso? It is here. And I tell you, hey, how's it going? And all of this is in really good condition as well. So we get the Yoda assembled. Yeah, it is so damn warm. Right, and Yoda in this set has a walking stick. Now, there is a green lightsaber, but you're not meant to give it to any of the characters. We are literally just started. We're on page 1 of the build. For anyone who needs a reminder, we're building this. So we've literally just started. We're starting off with the minifigures. And the best part is, right, it's been reversed bagged by the people who have bought it from, so, or the eBay seller, so that makes it even better.
Today's video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN. More from them in a bit.
You do get a green lightsaber, but you're meant to put it under Yoda's bed. Because obviously at this
Hello,
point
boys
in
and
Star
girls.
Wars, Luke had
Today
a
we are at
blue
West India
lightsaber.
Quay. This is a bit of
But
an
you can
odd
hold it for now.
station on the Docklands Light Railway. It's odd because it is ridiculously close to Canary Wharf.
I know,
And in
so
a
am
lot
I
of
not
stations,
anything?
you
What do you
cover
mean?
more distance than that, just changing
I'm confused.
trains. Why don't we take a closer look at this station
Get
and see
R2
what's
built.
what?
You also
I mean,
do get Luke's
as a
pilot
station,
helmet.
Architecturally speaking, purely in and of
It's-
itself, it's not
The
all
stem
that
sounds like
exciting.
time.
It
You
was
can't
one
choose
of
to
the
give him the
early
helmet.
DLR
I don't know what I'm
stations
giving him on
opened
this
in
one. Probably
1987.
just his hair.
Now, to give you a sort of brief outline of the location, the West India Docks have nothing to do with India. Rather, I'm guessing you've heard the story about how Christopher Columbus reached the Americas, how he was trying to find
R2
a
is
sea
just a
route to
standard
Asia.
R2 that we had from
Well, he
99
reached
to
the
08.
Caribbean and
Right, let's
hit the
actually
western
start the
side
building.
of what Europeans called the Indies.
Honestly, see
And
the
so
last 2
everyone
days.
in Europe just started calling that region
Yeah,
the
it's
West
alright. I'll be
Indies.
live for
I
a
don't know,
while.
maybe they felt bad for the guy or something. East India, which also has a DLR station named after it, is what we now call India. Britain colonized the West Indies in the 17th century, and those colonies proved enormously profitable. Robert Milligan was a West India trader who was frustrated at the way his goods kept getting held up on the river before they could be
Well,
unloaded
yeah,
in London.
pretty cool build.
Not
The
to
hut,
mention
like I said, is the
prevalence
main
of
bit I'm
river
excited
piracy
for.
back then. And so he headed up a campaign to build a new wet dock on the Isle of Dogs, surrounded by a wall. The first of these, the one that West India Quay Station sits above, opened in 1802. There used to be a statue of Milligan here, but, well, the elephant in the room is that a key part of the West India trade until 1833 was slavery, and while the West India traders were furious about losing profit, they were not so concerned about the human cost of doing business. There were strict laws governing the unloading of ships, and what that meant
But
was
how
that
is
for the
everyone's
first 3
Tuesday
decades
going?
or so, all goods coming from the Caribbean had to be unloaded here.
Yeah, there we go. That's the start of the X-Wing. It's very similar to that one up above my head, which is from
Goods like
2006.
tobacco, fruit,
Right,
coffee,
the
cotton,
functions
and
box.
particularly sugar were offloaded here. The first railways here were owned by the dock company, using small 4-wheeled locomotives to negotiate the tight curves. Banana trains were one of the most notable traffic flows, with vans that were connected up to the locomotive with hose pipes to enable them to be steam heated. I'll tell you what else is bananas these days, and that's not having a VPN. That's why I'm glad that today's video is sponsored by Surfshark
But, yeah.
VPN.
This
I'm
build,
not a
I'd
fan of
imagine an
these
hour and a
either.
half is
I
like,
think
that's how
most
long I want to be
people
spent on
So,
stream realistically.
Surfshark's advanced
And it's like
encryption
another
runs
hour.
servers in over 100
I don't want it
countries
to
offer
drag over
excellent
long.
security when you're online.
Purely
I'm
because
not
I'm up
even sure
early.
if I could name
And I mean
100
like
countries.
ridiculously early.
And if you want to engage in a little
Like
trading
4
of
a.m.
your own, those international servers are
I've
great
really
for
been
getting
looking forward to build this. I
region-specific
thought, you know what, I
bargains
want to
online,
build this today. I
not to
want to get it
mention
done.
maximising the value of streaming services by getting other countries' catalogues. Of course, not all trade is honest, and that's why I'm a particular fan of Surfshark's email scam checker, available with the Surfshark 1 or 1 Plus plan. It's a browser extension that works with Gmail to check your incoming mail in order to tell you whether it's legit and whether it's safe to click on any links therein. With the rise of AI, it's hard to tell the difference between a scammer and a lazy writer, so it's good to be forearmed, as it were.
So yeah, that's just basically
Surfshark
the
can be
mechanism
used
that
on all
allows the
platforms and
wing to do
unlimited
what
devices,
X-Wings
so
do.
it's great value for money on top
Right.
of everything else. What's even better value is if you go to surfshark.com/Jago, and there's a link in the description below.
Oh, you want to drop in the box? That'd be really bad.
You can get 4 months
Especially
extra
for the
free.
time part of it.
If only the international cargo trade were as secure as Surfshark. The 1960s
You can see that gear move
saw
at the
the
top.
start of a
You get a
fairly
rough idea how
rapid
it
decline
works.
in the docks. Trade moved away from East London downriver to Tilbury. In 1980, the West India docks closed for good. The warehouses stood empty, and with the closure of the docks, the economy in East London also went into rapid decline. That's a very brief version of the history of the West India docks. I did a fuller history, which is around here somewhere. But that's the basics. That's how we got to the start of the story of the DLR. In the early years of the DLR, there were quite a few of these publicity leaflets to encourage people to visit, and one of these days I'd love to do a full video on them. But anyway, this particular leaflet describes the West India Docks as the heart of the London Docklands Development Corporate Enterprise Zone, which is not a very catchy title, and I can see why everyone just calls the area Canary Wharf. The DLR was a key part of this enterprise zone in more ways than one.
Yeah, let's try and get this
The DLR
going
was
semi-quick. I
envisaged
was
as
going to
a
wait till
relatively
6:30
low-cost
to
way
stream, but I
of improving
thought,
transport links in the
I wasn't
Docklands
entirely
area.
sure yet
And when I say
if all this had
improving
been
them,
reversed
I mean,
back the
there
way I
were
thought it was.
basically
Like,
no
I might as well just get it
transport links
done.
in the early 80s. I think there was like a bus route. Light rail had the advantage that it could
But yeah, you
reuse
can now
abandoned
see
railway
the inner
alignments,
workings
including
doing
the ones that
properly.
had once
You have to
taken
spin it
goods
quite a
from
bit.
the
I'm pretty
West
sure this
India
is the
docks to
exact same
Stratford
mechanism
and
the
the
one
City
from
of London.
2006 uses.
The particular bit that West India Quay sits on was actually new. There had been a railway across the Isle of Dogs, but it had closed in the 1920s. There was a viaduct from the City of London to Westbury that would be reused, and there was a viaduct from Mudchute to Island Gardens that would also be reused. And a new
But
railway
realistically,
needed to
right,
connect
I'd
the
like
two.
to try and spend
The line
no
would be
more
elevated.
than 20 minutes per
Aside from the
bag.
cost, another
Just to,
advantage of light
you know,
rail was that it could take tighter
again,
curves
time
and
pass.
steeper
See the
gradients
heat we've
than
had in the
heavy
UK
rail
today. I
trails.
really want to go for a shower after
Obviously,
this.
an elevated railway was useful for getting across the dock basins that were, for the most part, still in place. But it also served as advertising for developers, a spectacular vista, or at least as much as a brownfield site can be called spectacular, a means of showing off what was available. And obviously this paid
Hey, it's
off
a good
because
thing these
before the
red
railway
bits
even
aren't the
opened,
dark
plans
red
were
bits,
afoot
or
for
you
the
do.
enormous
Oof,
Canary
problem.
Wharf development. In fact, Canary Wharf Station had to be rebuilt before it was even opened in response to the increased scope of the development. West India Quay might have been a far more unusual station. Next to it is a complicated junction. Fans of the DLR, there are dozens of us, dozens, refer to this as the roller coaster. It's basically the hub for the entire system. And in the early planning
Hey, welcome to
stages,
stream.
the
We're just
station we
building
now
the
call
X-Wing
West
from
India Quay would
2004.
have
How's it
sat
going?
right in the middle, a triangular station from which
Well,
it
we're
would have
building
been
this
possible
set
to get
here.
a train to every destination on the DLR. This was revised in the final plan, but it would have been pretty cool. Instead, the station was built slightly to the south of the junction. Originally, it was to be called North Quay, corresponding to South Quay on the other side of the docks. For whatever reason, they decided to name it West India Quay. I don't know, maybe they thought it was a more exotic name or something. It opened on the 31st of August, 1987. It's been rebuilt more than once. The early stations were built
It's kind
to
of
a
like the most
fairly
basic part of it.
standardized modular design,
Um,
inspired by
was it the
European
X-Wing
light rail,
particular is
but
not all
with
build?
high
We're gonna,
platforms,
you're
more
gonna
typical of
see my
British
stress
stations.
face
The canopies
when we
were
get
these
round to
sort of
building
curved bus
the
shelter
hut.
things
Just with
that were
those
described
old
in
dark
early
brown pieces,
DLR
you
literature
really got
as
to be careful with those.
self-cleaning, i.e. dirt would be washed off by the rain. Initially, there were 4 platforms. Development around here was fairly rapid, and that in turn affected the station. It was
Oh yeah, the
closed
Yoda was
between
on the instructions there.
1991 and 1993
Makes
as the
sense.
surrounding area was redeveloped, and in 2007 it underwent extensive rebuilding. This was partly to
Oh yeah, there's
increase
a wing as
capacity.
part of this
The
bag as
DLR
well.
had become so popular that longer trains were needed, and therefore longer platforms. But it was also because of the unexpected effect of putting all those tall buildings up. They channeled the wind, causing damage to the canopies at West India Quay. So new canopies were put up to replace them. Capacity issues also resulted in the station losing a platform in 2009. An extra track was put in for trains from Bank to Lewisham, which comes up alongside West India Quay without trains actually stopping there.
Yeah.
Which is weird
Sorry,
because
it's
trains
just
in
really
the
warm
opposite
today.
direction actually do stop there. I suppose we also need to address the whole distance to Canary Wharf thing. The distance between the two stations is the shortest between any two stations on the DLR network. It's just 199
So this is the main
meters,
bit
or
that
about
all the wings
218
pop
yards.
into. The cockpit goes
I
into
feel
this.
like if it
The
weren't
bit where
for that basin
R2D2
in the
goes
way,
in
it
is
would be hard to
everything basically
justify
connects to
building a
this main
station
module.
there
So we're
at
going to put
all.
that over here to the
Here's
side.
another indication of how close together the stations are. Canary Wharf Elizabeth Line
Again, one of my
station is
favourite things
actually
about these
closer to West India Quay than it
pre-2005
is to
sets
Canary
is the
Wharf
old LEGO
DLR
colour
station.
palette.
So that is a brief history of West India Quay. There's not a huge amount to say, but at least you've had the key facts. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video.
And see, for the age of the set, the fact that the white pieces are still white, I am happy with that.
Today's main
You know,
sources
people
were
often
the
do make the
Docklands
argument
Light
when
Railway
watching
Handbook
Russians,
by
you
Bob
could
Clayman
just
and
pay more
Stephen
money
Joy,
and get a sealed
and
one
The
to
Railways
open.
of London
Look, I've done
Docklands by
that maybe
Jonathan
once or
Willis.
twice, but probably
I
like
would like as ever
90% of
to
the
thank
time,
my donors
98%
on
of the time,
Ko-fi,
I
on
just buy
Patreon, and
used.
here on YouTube for your generous support. You are the
It
new
works
canopies to my
for
windswept
me.
station. I would also like to thank Surfshark for once again sponsoring me. Check out the link in the description below to take advantage of their generous offer. And I will see you all again very soon. Cheerio.
Made a little mistake there on the wing. But yeah, I want to relax and enjoy the build, but I also don't want to be here like till idiotic amounts of time, because it's one of those things. Like, I'm the kind of person that will set an alarm or like a timer or whatever for work in the morning, and I will ignore it. I'm like, it's fine. I can save a few more hours, and then suddenly I was like, you're up in 4 hours. Like, oh no. Hey there, Lego man, how's it going? Flip this upside down, and we will get these. No, how you doing? How's it? What's going on? We are building this set, 4502 X-Wing Fighter from 2004. That's today's build. That's cool. No, I wanted to get a short out showing it off, and I was like, we have to get the Empire Strikes Back music, because this is this and the 2006 one are the only two X-Wings based off Empire. Because all the other X-Wings are based off other movies. But again, that makes sense because the X-Wing's not the main vehicle of Empire Strikes Back. I'd say we spent more time with the Falcon for that movie. And Star Destroyers. But for the rest of the year, I'm planning to buy more sets from this era, specifically for live builds. You know, the kind of pre-2005 stuff, for the most part. Like, anything, well, I suppose not. Anything in the first 10 years of LEGO Star Wars is some of the stuff I've been going after lately. So I expect content based around that. So we completed the first part, which is the module the wings connect to, and I'm sure something just flung out of that. Did something just pop out of that? I swear it did. I now have to find that slid out of there so quietly. This. So that is one problem with this. Hey, Scooter. So we got it working. This is the mechanism for wings. It is so hot today. Right, we can get back to building. So we've got the wing together. I just need to build like the bits that go round for detail on the wing. Like I said, this set I feel like I know how it goes together just because it's so similar. I think it's like a few slight changes. It's not 100% the same as the one from 2006 that would come afterwards, but 2006 would be the improvement over this one. However, at some point, since I appear to just be buying Lego X-Wings, it feels that way because I've now got 3 of them. I would like to get a hold of the original one from 1999. I feel that would make an interesting live build. And at some point in this year, a review on this has to be done. I've ordered this tripod. That is the one. I've ordered a tripod, right, that's a lot taller and can rotate. So we should be able to go back to doing reviews. Because like I said, right, I've ran out, apart from the Riddler who's up there, I've ran out of minifigures for the Lego Batman series. Because I need to wait on a lot of the ones that are custom pre-orders arriving. The Complete Saga can go on, but I don't know if I want to do 2 episodes of that a week. So, more than likely, I'll replace the Friday slot with a review of a set like this one. Right, so that's this wing complete. Let's get this on here. That is a cool set. So, obviously there'll be rubber bands, and this, I don't want to just confuse, because nowadays it's a lot less complicated. Basically, the rubber bands expand, and once that moves up, it allows the wings to do the thing. They're, again, very similar to the one from 2006. So now I just have to build this engine piece that mounts to it, and we're golden. Right, okay, we're going to flip this upside down again. That piece falls out. I hope that there's a piece that goes in on the final model to stop that. That is annoying. But, yeah, you get the idea. Of course, to finish off that bag, we have this piece here that goes on there, I think. No, does it? Yeah. See, I always thought for years that the starting part of this build would be the hut. Right, so the bags are kind of being reversed, but it's hard to figure out what bag is what. Right, so educated get, is that a cockpit piece in here? I can't bloody tell. Educated guess that that's the cockpit pieces. We'll need that, that's a wing, that bag's a wing. That is also a cockpit, right, okay. These labels, I'll read your comment in a second. They're page numbers. Page 38 to 47. Ah! page 13 to 22. This one's next. I figured out this person's labeling system. Oh, I know the one you're on about. That's a cool set. See, that's a thing from the Toys R Us era of Lego collecting. We do still get 3-in-1 packs, they're just not as cool. Like, you used to get 3-in-1s of full-size sets, and you would get them as like a bundle deal. I've debated buying them a couple times, but I don't know. And again, the one from 2012 is pretty damn cool. See, I was watching a thing. Apparently, that Endor, or sorry, the Ewok Village everyone talked about, I don't think that's happening anymore for this year. Well, allegedly, that's not happening. Right. Again, I am not planning to be up mega late because I'm up at like 4 in the morning for work. So, just try to make sure that I want to get this done, but I want to get it done at a decent rate. I'm sure that makes sense to all of you. Right. See, that's what I mean. You used to get free full-size sets in some of those. It's just one of those things that Lego Star Wars just doesn't do anymore. It's a shame. Because we used to get some interesting ones as well. There's a few from 2011 that I quite like. Right, that's everything from that page. Cool. Hey, how's it going? Oh, man, that is so warm. Oh, there's 2 wings in this bag. That makes sense. Right. But yeah, let's just see how much this. Well, we're all gonna complete the set, right? That's the given. But I just what time, Will? There we go. That's 20 minutes till 7. I don't want to be here at 8. See, I was gonna go for a shower before this, but with how warm it is, I might there'll be no point because I'll do the live stream and then I'll need one again. There's that weird debate of do I have one and then risk waking up and needing it again, or do we, or we just get up early in the morning and lose some sleep? That's an annoying, very annoying debate. Right. But I miss Lego Star Wars sets like this where you got 2 builds in one and both builds are sizable. We don't really get that anymore. Right, let's get this other wing attached. So there we go, we're making progress. Admittedly, for the first like 15 minutes we weren't building anything. One second, let me read this notification. Cool. I like this because it's also from that era, right? Oh yeah, the wings on the top are designed differently, I forgot. This is from that era of LEGO Star Wars where the prequels were coming out, but in between the gaps of those movies coming out, they would go nuts with original trilogy stuff, and a lot of that was the first time being made, and a lot of it didn't get remade for years. It took 14 years after this set to get another Yoda's Hut. But yeah, I forgot. So I was in, my brain was about to autopilot and do the exact same build again for those wings until my brain clicked and went, no, you do it differently. But I already more or less know how I'm building this for the most part. Like muscle memory, and that sounds stupid because I built the 2006 one not that long ago. Right. Get these pieces in here. I tell you, I have never built one of the. I wonder what the modern X-wings are like to build. I may eventually buy one of the newer ones just to have just to see. Because the only X-wings I've ever built are the ones from 1999. I'm now building 2004, even though it's very close to 2006. That's true. I built the one from 2012. But I never built any of the ones that I've actually had to move the one from 2012 over that way, just in order for everything to fit. Because this is going next. This is going on the Rebel shelf next to that X-Wing. Yep, and the guns are also slightly different up top as well. Okay. Oh, they've not got that clip the way the X-Wing, the later one did. I do enjoy those little differences because there's some, like, seeing this era as well, the sets would get frequent re-releases. Like, I know a couple of the 1999 sets were re-released this year as well, or the year this came out, I should say. Can you imagine if they re-released 1999 sets now? That would be kind of cool. I'd like to see the LEGO Star Wars fans who only buy the who have only been collecting a little while and swear only by the modern sets build those. That'd be interesting. Yeah, I would say I would agree. Put that next to a crab droid. There we go. Right, okay, that goes in there. There we go. Also, the rubber bands and the Technic gear at the back do the rest of the work. But we are down to make sure I've put. My looks a little bit light. Why have I got all these additional pieces? I could be bagged a few wrong. Alright, we're good. One more wing, to go, and that'll be the one that's in this bag. Page 20. Ah. It just took me a while to actually read and understand it. Rubber bands are here too. Oh, nice. I've even separately bagged up the bands and include. Oh, they'll give me new ones as well. That's good. In all fairness, in all the years I've been collecting, I don't think I've ever had to replace rubber bands on a set. I think I've gotten lucky there. Because I know plenty of people who have had to do it. Four 4502. Right, we're just working on some of the X-Wing's wing. The final wing we need to build. It's a cool set. We'll find out if I think, because I know there's slight changes, differences between this and that X-Wing up there. So we'll find out what one I think's better. I've always wondered, with the slight changes, which one I would think is better. We're answering a very old question for me then. Right, let's get this cannon built upwards, the piece 4 of that. There we are. Sorry, the commentary might not be great. I'll read your comment in a second. I'm just trying to concentrate. The heat is really getting to me. Yesterday in work, it was really bad. Oh no, I get with some old retired sets, you have to spend a lot of money to get them, but I feel like spending a fortune on an old set is still better than buying a new set. Now let's get this engine thrown into this and we'll be golden. Then we have to build the cockpit and then I can get on to the exciting bit of the build. The hut. I wonder how many of you would disagree with me on that being the more exciting bit. I'm curious. Let me know. Right, little grill piece that goes on there. Wow, the sweat is just coming off today. Honestly, do you know what it is? It's the fact that they kept changing the space theme and how cool some of it did look, like the different colours of the translucent bits. That is something I'm very on board for. Like, I would buy some of that. But admittedly, right, I've been trying to stay away from buying other Lego themes recently. And at least the sets from, I'd buy figures from them right now, but in terms of buying the actual sets, I'm trying to stop myself. Because I'm already running out of space. Funny enough, me and Tara were talking about this because he's a Transformers collector. he sent me that picture today going, oh, by the way, I think I'm running out of space, and it's his display. I was like, yeah, I think you are. But then it's been me who's been running out of space for a long time. I just get creative, or if I really, really feel like it, I will sell a set. I don't really end up selling them, though. Right, we're going to get this put on here. And the wings are in, so now it's just rubber bands. Oh wait, no, the instructions say to put the green lightsaber in the X-Wing underbit. It's weird that they give Luke a green lightsaber when he didn't have one at that point in the movie. That keeps falling out. I might take apart this bottom just to see if I can. Well, after I put on these rubber bands to staple the wings. Just to see why it keeps doing that. Because I can't see an obvious reason for it. Unless that's just a design issue with this set, that it's something it does. Because some sets are that way. Also, well, that might be a problem. I may just have to keep separate from the set. I'm going to watch some reviews after this, and if it's really a problem, I think I'll have it. There we go. There's the wings in the X-Files information. And the tight rubber band is like how that one is. But then again, I actually bought that X-Wing over there sealed, and that's how I got my smooth hair Princess Leia. Right, what's next? Cockpit. I'll just empty both bags for the cockpit. Wait, no, wait. Page 3847. So I need to use my head here. Page 31. Onward, let's go. Right, let's go.
Today's video is sponsored by Sailey, and we'll hear more from them in a little bit. Hello, everybody. Today we're going to continue looking at the Amsterdam Metro, and today
I love these old Lego cars. This is what I like.
Line 54 or M54 is a line running from Centraal Station, which, as you might imagine, is Amsterdam's main station, and Geen, out in the southeastern suburbs. Now, in more than one sense, this is a sequel to my previous video on Line 53, in large part because a lot of it is the same
Lego
route.
Space Police
Route
would be my
54
favourite.
was constructed as part of the Oostline. I covered the construction of the Oostline in the previous video, but to briefly recap. In 1968, the city of Amsterdam approved the construction of a series of metro lines to combat increasing levels of congestion on the roads. Unfortunately, this proved to be rather unpopular as it would require widespread demolition. This culminated in the 1975 Newmarkt riots, following which the government agreed not to construct any more metro lines for the time being. The first section of what would become Line 54 between Weesperplein and Holendrecht opened on the 14th of October 1977. This followed the route of the existing main line railway. The second section, the underground section from Weesperplein to Centraal, opened on the 11th of October 1980. And the final section, Holendrecht to Geen, opened on the 27th of August.
Just building a little bit where Luke sits.
This was a new dedicated elevated line. And as this was finished after the last section of Line 53, that's why it comes second in this series. See, though this be madness, yet there is method to it. While the Metro saw good passenger numbers, it was neglected. It became notorious for crime and vandalism. It wasn't until the 21st century that it was fully refurbished, making it a reasonably pleasant experience to use. You know, as metro systems go. Speaking of things that are pleasant to use, I'd like to talk to you about today's sponsor, Saily, which may or may not also be an excuse to show you more trains. Are we cool with that? As a Brit abroad, if I want to access the
Lego
internet,
Space
my
Police
options are
3.
kind of limited.
I
have
like
to either
it's
hook
one of
up
those
to
cool
whatever
themes and
Wi-Fi
it's
hotspots I can
nostalgic because
find,
that's
or
around the
rack up
time I
those
got into
agonising
Lego.
roaming charges. Or buy a physical SIM, but come on, I'm in Amsterdam. I want to be roaming the canals while humming the theme from Van der Valk, not messing about with my phone. That's where Saily comes in. It uses your phone's eSIM function to give you as much data as you need at a very nice price. All you need to do is download the app, select your data plan,
I ain't gonna be
and
out of
once
here in
you
the
arrive
next
at your
40 minutes.
destination, it
Maybe a
connects
little
you
bit
up.
past the goal
It's
I'm going
compatible
for,
with
but
any phone that has an
screw it. So
eSIM
far, this
function,
build has went
including
very,
iOS and Android.
very well.
It serves over 200 destinations worldwide, and there are multiple data plans available to suit you, including
After this bag, there's
regional
only 2
and
left to
global.
go.
Viewers of this channel can get their data even cheaper with a 15% discount on data plans. Just go to saily.com/jago or use the link in the description below and enter the code JAGO at checkout.
There we go.
And
That's like
you're
the
away.
nose of the
Metaphorically
ship.
and later, literally. Well, that's you connected up. Let's go back to talking about the trains on Line 54. The trains it uses are much the same as the ones on Line 53. That is to say, the M5 and M7 units. I don't think I mentioned that in the last video. Due to the relative newness of the Metro, there have
Time
only
for this
been 2
underbelly to
generations
go
of
on.
trains, with the first generation being the M1s, M2s and M3s. All these trains operate by drawing 750 volts from a third rail. The total line is 12.7 kilometers or 7.9 miles long and includes 14 stations. So let's take a closer look. We'll start at Central, which confusingly is not the most central station on the line, but it could have been. Central Station was originally built in 1889 as the city's largest station, and it really is a rather magnificent thing. It sees around 192,000 passengers a day, making it the second busiest station in the whole
I have
of
one
the
magnet
Netherlands
set.
after
You
Utrecht
can't really
Centraal.
see it. The shelf
The
blocks it
metro
out.
station is no
But
less
it's from
remarkable.
2009.
The
It's Newt
platforms were
Gunray,
built wider
Anaconda,
than
and
usual in
Palpatine.
anticipation of the high number of passengers. It is the terminus of Line 54, but it was designed in such a way that the line could be extended west to Osdorp, per the original plans. This hasn't happened yet, but you never know. As well as lines 53 and 54, lines 51 and 52 also call here. The next station is Newmarkt. This is probably the most consequential station on the line. The demolition of houses here in 1954 led to the Newmarkt riots, which in turn led to a rethink of policy with regard to public transport and urban planning in Amsterdam. On the one hand, this meant that future development in Amsterdam would be more sympathetic to the existing historic city, but on the other, it held up the construction of future metro lines. However you view it, the events of 1974 and 1975 are commemorated in artworks
What do you mean
at the
magnet?
station.
Well, I'm confused.
Part of the North Concourse of Waterlooplein is located inside the Stoppera, the large complex that includes both the City Hall and the Opera House. At the planning stages, this station was known as Stadhuis. From 2016 to 2020, there was a massive amount of renovation along the Oostline, which here involved removing a lot of untidy cabling, but the original artwork on the walls was happily retained. Weesperplein is rather interesting because it was built as an interchange with the Singel line. This would have run from Huizenveld to Gasperplas. However,
up the
this was one of the
sides.
many proposals cut in
We're nearly done this bag as
1975,
well.
so
I'm
now
not
that
sure if
they've
this is
never
how the set
used
would have
coin
originally
under
been
the
bagged back in the
existing
day.
station.
I have
This is why
absolutely
the
no clue.
station doesn't have island platforms like most of the others, and why it has a larger booking hall area than normal. A fun fact about the underground stations is that they were designed to be easily converted into fallout shelters if the need arose. And the unused section beneath Weesperplein was turned into just such a shelter. It now houses smoke extraction machinery installed as part of a 21st century safety drive. Original plans had Wieboudstraat named Oosterparkstraat. This is the only section of line to be built using the cut and cover method. The rest of the underground part was built using the caisson method, whereby a concrete section of tunnel was built on the surface and then sunk into the ground. The most notable feature of this station is
we're now onto this bag here,
commemorating the fact that 3 newspapers were based nearby: De Volkskrant,
right,
and True. They aren't based there now, but fortunately there are other yards. And next we come to my favourite station in the entire city, Amsterdam. This is a real transport hub where metro, trains, trams and buses all call. But that's not what I love about it. What I love is the architecture. This station was designed by H.G.J. Schelling and opened in 1939. It's a beautiful piece of modernism, complemented by artworks by Peter Alma and Theo van Rijn. At platform level, there's this rather interesting train shed. The girders, with their smoothed-off corners, remind me a little bit of Belgian Art Nouveau. I did have a chap on Instagram tell me off for suggesting that this station could have more than one style, but I stand by it. Actually, obviously, this wasn't really a thing in 1939, but these days I think it's a bit reminiscent of steampunk. Can something be reminiscent of a thing that doesn't exist yet? Interesting question. Anyway, we are now firmly above ground, and next we have Spakenweg. Line 51 has followed the course of the Oostline up to this point, but here it turns off and heads towards Isolaterweg. Then we come to Van der Maarderweg. Van der Maarderweg is the junction station where lines 53 and 54 separate.
Yeah, I thought I got
also,
pages
we meet
stuck.
line
It's
50,
so warm.
which will follow line 54 all the way to Gent.
It's quotable.
Next, we have Duivendrecht, which is another interchange with 2 mainline railways. What I like is this giant
final bit of the X-Wing.
that, as far as I'm aware, does nothing at all. But it does give a kind of frontage to a station that otherwise points in all different directions. I don't know, I just like giant triangles. I'm planning on holidaying in Bermuda this year. The station was only opened in 1993, when the Ringspoorbaan main line railway was opened. Hence, partly the fact that the architecture is unlike the rest of the metro. I'm going to skip past Strandvliet for now, and we'll look at Amsterdam Bijlmer Arena station. There's a second capital A at the end of Arena, so I don't know.
Also, Lego pre-2015 is brilliant. Like that.
This is another
well, no, like for me, it's anything 2015 or back is where I'm at with Lego. But maybe it's a nostalgia thing. I don't know.
And Bijlmer Arena is a case in point. The station serves the Johan Cruyff Arena, the national football stadium and home of Ajax. When the station opened in 1971, it was simply named Amsterdam Bijlmer, but it was renamed in 2006. In 2007, this spectacular rebuild was completed. As well as metros and trains, the complex incorporates a bus station. Nobody seems to have much to say about Strandvliet, Boelewijk, or Holendrecht. Even this book I have on the architecture of the stations describes them, and I quote, as the only 3 stations that are almost identical. They follow a layout known as Sphinx, which was common to the above-ground stations designed by Ben Spenberg and Sier van Rijn. The platform entrance forms the head, and the tracks form the port.
Right there.
Since
Where is that
2006, Holendrecht has been another interchange with the main line. The same is also true of Rijkersbos and Gent. Gent isn't laid out like a terminus, and the tracks continue a short distance beyond the platform ends. It seems very much as if this was again intended to be extended in the future, but I haven't found any information about any such plans, if they were ever made. It's possible that it's a victim of change in Amsterdam's town planning policy. The
There
new
we go.
suburbs built to the southeast in the 70s became somewhat notorious in the 80s, and so growth in that area slowed down. I'm speculating here, but it's
That's just how it is, man.
possible that the layout of this terminus, and indeed the one at Hasperplas, are relics of a version of Amsterdam that never existed. Well, I do hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more. I'm not sure which route I'm going to tackle next. If we're going chronologically, I suppose it should be line 51. Or I could do a total swerve and take a look at the tram network. Anyway, we'll see. My main sources for this video were the article Amsterdam, un métro pour une ville nouveau by Jean-Paul Masse in La Vie du Rail, Metro Oostline Amsterdam, Designing the System by Martin van Bremen, Jeroen van Eyre and Martin Lever, Die Oostline van de Amsterdamse Metro by B. Janssen, and Metros in Holland by Robert Schwandel. I would like, as always, to thank my donors on Ko-fi, on Patreon, and here on YouTube for your generous support. You are the great big triangle to my otherwise undistinguished station. Thanks also to Saley for sponsoring today's video. Check out the link in the description below to take advantage of their generous offer. And I will see you all again very soon. Cheerio.
So now it should just be the cockpit that goes on. I just need to add the little pieces that attach it, and yeah,
This week,
all these little
the
extra
10th of
pieces, but
June,
those like
is the
I'm
40th
wondering if it gives you the
anniversary of
choice
the
between
appearance of a new
the swamp
brand
stuff,
on the
the
British
parts of the
Rail
swamp and the
network.
weeds, or
One that
the landing
represented
lights, or
the
like have
future
both.
that is now looked back upon with fondness, and whose impact is felt all the way to the present. So, what was so great about Network Southeast? Network Southeast was a sector of British Rail that existed from 1986 to 1997, so only about 11 years, really. There are still signs of it around the network, sometimes literally. It covered, as the name suggests, London and the southeast of England. I mean, when you put it like that, it doesn't sound all that exciting, although I'll admit we train nerds can get excited about some pretty esoteric things. Obviously, there is a
Right,
strong
landing
element
gear.
of nostalgia.
Of course there's more,
If
and
you
I'm
remember
going
this,
to
then
think of
you
it.
are probably in your mid-30s and upwards, and therefore at high risk of nostalgia. But at the time it appeared, it represented something new and exciting. Let's go back in time. We'll overshoot 1986 and land ourselves in the mid-1970s. At this time, the railways were basically structured the same way they had been since 1923. British Rail, the nationalised rail
And there we
network,
go.
was grouped into 5 regions based on the
There's a
4
minifigure,
railway
right,
companies that
from
had
Lego
existed
Space
up
Police,
until
and it's called Brick
nationalisation.
Daddy.
It was an arrangement based on
That's a minifigure that I'm
bureaucracy
after.
rather than logic, with the only concessions to common sense being the introduction of separate regions for Scotland and North East England. Each region handled everything, from rural branch line trains to expresses and bulk freight and even things like ferries. The modernisation plan, masterminded by the notorious Dr. Beeching, had brought about the end of steam and the less logical freight workings, but it only did half a job. Full electrification was never completed, and the modern freight yards were soon superseded by changing traffic flows. Worse, part of the modernisation plan involved the closure of hundreds of miles of unremunerative railways. The local station with its station master and goods yard was replaced with a bus stop if you were lucky. The general political attitude seemed to be, we want a better rail network, but we don't want to spend any money on it, to the frustration of the various heads of the British Transport Commission. Now, to be fair, things weren't all bad. This was the era that brought us the high-speed train, a beloved design classic, but even this was a half measure, a diesel train for a Victorian, unelectrified network. Hardly
Yeah, it's
seemed
fine. I'm
like
just adding these
so
lights up.
GTV.
Oh, that nearly
It
fell.
was an era characterized by underinvestment, union woes, red tape, and the organisation being swayed in whichever direction the political wind was blowing. This period is sometimes known by enthusiasts as the blue and grey era, literally because of the livery carried by rolling stock, but I can't help but feel that that's also a pretty good description of how commuters felt travelling on the network. In 1977, Peter Parker was put in charge of British Rail. No, not that one. Parker was a businessman who brought a business approach to the job. But rather than paring things back and agonising over every penny as Beeching had done, Parker argued that, like it or not, the railways could not improve without investment. In fact, he presented the government with a report arguing that either they could invest or cut the network right back to nothing but the trunk routes. Even Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, not known for her affection towards public transport, to put it mildly, was forced to accept the ultimatum. Parker also began the process of restructuring. As things stood, every region did everything. Parker abandoned this approach.
That needs pulled out
Instead,
and
he brought
relayed.
about sectorisation. What this meant was that the railways would be divided up by types of service. All the intercity trains would be under one department. All the freight would be under another. Regional railways would get the passenger services in England and Wales, while ScotRail would do the same for Scotland. This was partly about efficiency, but there was also a political motivation. The government did not like subsidising British Rail, but by giving each kind of service its own management structure, it was easier to pinpoint exactly where.
I'm not going to take that apart and fix it tonight.
And from the perspective of the people on the ground, as it were, they would have fewer layers of management to fight through in order to get things done. A sector was created in 1982 specifically to serve London and the South East. It was named London and South East. Catchy. The commuter services of London and the South East were a special case. The region was densely populated, services were so frequent that many lines were congested, and the trains were packed. In theory, with millions of passengers every year, the region shouldn't need subsidising at all, yet it did. While the commuter lines carried a truly enormous number of passengers, the railways of London were in a dismal state. The rise of buses, trams and the London Underground had reduced the number of passengers using the railways built in the 19th century, and the railway companies and British Rail had therefore cut services back accordingly. Trains were old, overcrowded, dirty and often late. Britain was one of the last countries in Europe to still be using slam-door trains on its commuter services. Passengers were quitting the railways in droves. London and South East looked at how things could be improved. This was not yet Network South East, but a lot of what made Network South East a success was...
Now for the main attraction, Yoda's hut. So I'm going to take the X-Wing, right? And I'm going to put it up here, because that's where I'm going to keep it.
To reopen the Snow Hill Tunnel, now part of Thameslink. One of their successes in 1985 was something called the Capital Card, a joint ticket that could be used on London transport services and British Rail services in London. That might not sound like much, but it was actually really important from a business perspective. When train fares rose, people moved to the buses and tubes. When London Transport jacked fares up, they went back to the trains.
Printed piece.
It was hard to plan
that
for the
is
future.
cool.
By introducing a single fare structure, things were stabilised. Passengers began to drift back to the trains. Things were on, as you might say, the right track. Less successful in 1985 was the introduction of a new livery for trains. This was straight out of the 70s, consisting of brown and beige with an orange stripe. To this day, the livery is known among enthusiasts as Jaffa Cake, and it was short-lived. And that was because the following year, something more radical was coming. A new general manager was brought in.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Green had just come from ScotRail, where he had presided over some massive improvements at a relatively low cost, and it was hoped that he could do the same for London and South East. Green was of the opinion, and his experience of ScotRail seemed to bear this out, that marketing was all important. Well, it was the image-conscious 80s after all. Therefore, a number of advertising agencies were approached. The agency that won out was J. Walter Thompson, or JWT, working with design firm Jordan Williams. JWT came up with
But
the
really
name
careful with these
Network
old Lego
Southeast.
colours though.
It was cool,
Last
it
thing I
was
want is to
modern.
find myself on
It didn't
Brexit
sound
after
like
this trying
part
to
of
buy
British
old
Rail.
Lego brown
John
pieces.
Robertshaw, with amendments by Jane Priestman, devised a new logo and livery. The colour scheme was inspired by the Union Jack, consisting of red, white, blue and grey. The logo was nicknamed the Rhombus and was applied everywhere, from trains to uniforms. The livery was bright and modern, even when applied to the basically steam-age trains still operating across much of the network. JWT identified that it would take more than a logo to improve matters, and as part of their contract, they demanded improvements to the stations. Green
Right.
was in agreement.
But after
In
we
his
build
early
this,
days
that'll
in
pretty
charge,
much be
he
the stream
commuted into
over.
work
I'm
using
glad we
London
got
and
to another building
South
stream
East
because
trains.
I've not
Shabby,
done as many building ones
poorly-maintained
this year
stations
as I
were
would
one of
have
the major
liked.
issues he identified. They just didn't look good. They presented a hostile environment. Incidentally, I think all executives should be forced to use the services their organisations provide. The architect, Ronnie McIntyre, was poached from ScotRail with the brief to do what he'd done up there, down here. But rebuilding stations would take time. In the meantime, a rather iconic solution was devised to the problem of smartening up stations. Paint them red. In particular, the lamp posts. This was a tall order. There was something in the region of 30,000 lamp posts on the network. The speed of the project caused a national shortage of red paint. Local contractors were brought in with mixed results. For instance, those in Brentwood misunderstood the assignment and repainted the lampposts in the town centre instead of the ones in the station. Despite all this, the mission was a success. To this day, you can still see lampposts around the network in faded red, as well as fences, handrails and other platform furniture. Here at Wadden Marsh, the station is long
Right, that's
gone,
this
but the
side.
network
I
southeast
remember right,
lampposts
that's meant
are
to be
very
Yoda's
much still
bed.
in evidence.
It's what about over
A
here, isn't
program
it?
known as
Huh.
Operation Sparkle was all about updating the stations in more extensive ways, replacing old benches with modern vandal-proof models, installing white and pattern tiling, and other measures to drag Victorian stations into the late 20th century. There was a new map, a diagrammatic tube-style map,
Oh, it's a
although the
stove,
London
alright.
Underground guys did not invent the concept of a diagrammatic rail map. Still, it looked pretty cool. One of the most noticeable features was the new station clocks, another icon of the network. These displayed the time down to the second to emphasize the importance of punctuality. They were synchronized to the atomic clock at Rugby. Anyone who used the network in this era will remember the distinctive clacking of the changing numbers, and some of these clocks are still in service. Long line announcing was introduced on the North London line and cascaded through the system. This was a technology whereby an announcement could be made simultaneously at every station along a line, enabling information about the service to be communicated easily. I'm just about old enough to remember when all this first showed up. However, as I was a small child at the time, I had less of a frame of reference. I do clearly remember seeing the livery for the first time. It was rather exciting. My local line was part of the southwestern lines. See, the network was divided further into subdivisions. There was southwestern, North London, South London,
Yeah, whatever,
Great
man. You do
Eastern,
whatever you
Chiltern,
want.
Thames,
I ain't involved.
London, Tilbury and Southend, Solent and Wessex, West of England, Sussex Coast, Oxted Line,
Right,
Kent
so
Link,
it's these
Marsh
bits that
Link,
branch
Kent
up the way.
Coast, 3 counties, Northampton, West Anglia Great Northern, North Downs, Island Line, Thames Link, and by far the smallest division, Waterloo and City. This was not a small or simple network. Of course, the most important part of running a railway is the trains. Existing trains were repainted, reupholstered, and as necessary, refurbished. More cleaners were hired. While the livery was colourful, it was unforgiving when it came to dirt. An early version of the livery that was primarily white had been rejected for just that reason. Essentially, what had been done for the stations was done for the trains. Quick fixes that admittedly were stopgap measures were introduced so that NSE could say right off the bat that they were doing something. But new trains would be needed. I would argue that there were 2 truly iconic trains for the network's southeast era, the Networkers.
Sorry, I'm not
and
saying
the
too much
Western
in
Train.
terms of commentary,
The
because I
Networkers
really
were
concentrate
actually
for these
several
pieces.
different
It's sort of
classes
tiny
of train.
ones.
The class
And it's when I'm doing
165s
stuff to
and
the old Lego
166s
brown
were
pieces as
diesels.
well, you have
The
to be really careful.
465s and 466s were third rail electric multiple units, and the 365s were dual voltage electric. The 365s were withdrawn in 2021, but at the time of editing, many of the others are still in service. They were lightweight and had good acceleration, and their introduction meant that many of the remaining locomotive hauled services could be withdrawn. The Wessex Electrics were for long-distance services and were a sort of Frankenstein unit, based on the modern Mark III coach with traction and control.
So I've got this one in this set from 2004. I've got the one from 2006 above my head, and over another shelf I've got the one from 2012.
Plastic Pigs. They lasted from 1988 to 2020. For service on the long-distance non-electrified lines, the organisation acquired the Class 159s, diesel trains built as surplus from an order for regional railways. They entered service in 1993 and are still going. New trains required improvements to the railways. Signals were upgraded and electrification was expanded. Sections like the West London line, Camden to Dalston, Hitchin to Peterborough, and Portsmouth to Southampton went on the juice for the first time. But surely the most radical investment of all was in new
Here's the thing, right? I'm not intentionally building an army of them. I have a lot of nostalgia for the 2006 and 2012 ones, so I bought both of those. This one is a set that I always wanted, so that's kind of why I picked this one up.
An entirely new line was the Stansted Airport Rail Link. My spell checker keeps trying to turn Stansted into stagnated, which coincidentally is what happens to an airport with bad public transport links. But the biggest project achieved under Network South East was Thameslink. Now, the concept behind Thameslink predated NSE and even London and South East. It relied on the Snow Hill Tunnel. This was a 19th century tunnel under London, built by the London Chatham and Dover Railway, which had closed to passengers in 1916. Reopening this had been under consideration since at least the 1974 London Rail Study, and there had been public campaigns for it ever since. The reasoning was simple. The tunnel was not a super long one, about 750 yards or 685 metres, but it provided a connection between the suburban lines of North and South London. The first stage opened in 1988, consisting of the tunnel and a station known as King's Cross Thameslink,
what set am I building? I'll show you.
But you can see from the trains you approach St Pancras.
I'm building the hut from this
station, known initially as St Paul's, quickly renamed City Thameslink in 1991. Other new lines were planned. A rail connection to Heathrow Airport, and most ambitious of all, a cross-rail line across London from east to west, intended to do what Thameslink had done for the north-south route. But these would not come to fruition until long after Network South East had ceased to exist. In 1992, as part of their election manifesto, the Conservative Party announced that the railways of Britain would be privatised. Network South East was no exception to this, and it would be split up into 11 franchises. The last subdivision of NSE, Thameslink, was handed over in 1997. Network South East.
I didn't buy this set for its X-Wing. I bought this purely for the hut. I know a lot, but apparently a lot of people do it the other way around.
Its worth. No longer were the commuter services a miserable joke, but a shining example of the value of sectorisation. Passenger numbers were up by over 25%, and the need for government subsidy had been completely eliminated. This aside, though, it's easy to understand why it invokes fond nostalgia. It brought strong brand identity and modern design literacy to a network that was in danger of losing its way. It brought pride in the railways at a time when the government seemed ashamed of them. And it was distinctive. For many of us, those red, white and blue trains carry fond memories of trips down to the seaside or up to London. The colours stood out against the drab 80s rail scene. Even today, there are signs of the old network dotted about the place, and the nostalgia is strong enough that some rolling stock has even been repainted in NSE colours. We can still see the influence of Network South East in other ways, though. The Elizabeth Line, Thameslink and the Heathrow Express are all brainchildren of the NSE
Right,
era.
okay, we've got
The
roads
London
on.
Overground feels
Yeah,
like an
but this
update
is
of the
just bits
concept.
for
The idea that
vines.
for relatively little outlay, you can dramatically improve
See,
the service.
I did own
More
the
directly, much of
2022
what's now
set
the
version of this for a
Overground
while,
is
but I
lines
still
that
think this is
were
the better one.
previously run by Network Southeast. So while it's been 40 years since Network Southeast began and nearly 30 since it ceased to exist, in some ways, it never really went away. Well, I do hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please do leave a like and consider subscribing for more. Today's main sources were British Rail, the Nation's
Not too much longer
Railway by
ago.
Tanya
I
Jackson,
estimate we'll be finishing
British
in the next
Rail
10
Designed
minutes.
by David Lawrence, and The Network Southeast Story by Chris Green and Mike Vincent. I would like, as ever, to thank my donors on Ko-fi, on Patreon, and
These
here on
bits just to help
YouTube for your
these.
generous support.
Because
You are
obviously the
colourful
Yoda's hut
repaints
can be
to my
opened
slammed
up
or
or
train.
it can be
And
folded
I will
in.
see you
I'm going to
all
have it
again
folded
very
in.
soon. Cheerio.
Couple more clips for the outside. So, most likely tomorrow, once I get home from work, we'll be doing some stuff to the shelves behind me.
The Overground is one of the great 21st century success stories of London's transport network. A low-budget upgrade, largely using existing railway lines, that has nevertheless dramatically improved transport links in suburbs that had hitherto been...
And I do apologise, I look a bit messy,
but its
it's
roots
so
go
warm
back
here.
much further. I'm here to talk
So
about
we're just
a
finishing
very
off
similar project
pretty
that
much
was
the hut.
proposed all the way back in 1973. Well, similar apart from the plan to move Clapham Junction, and the monorails, and the international station at Gospel Oak, and... No, let's just get into it. I'm here to talk about Ringrail. About 2 years ago, I bought this very expensive book, and then I never did anything with it. So here we go. The book is A New Ringrail for London. I rather like this cool logo they came up with. Ringrail was an unofficial proposal put forward by G.L. Crowther, P.H. Vickers and A.D. Pilling to build a new orbital railway. Now, I have referred to this as an early version of the Overground, but it should be noted that the proposal was made in a rather different climate.
I like
than
the
one we
piece
have
that
now.
goes on top of this,
See,
is
back
pretty
in
cool.
the 60s, there was a proposal known
printed
as
as
the
well.
Ringways, no relation, which was a series of motorways encircling London. As far as the Greater London Council were concerned, cars ruled, trains drooled. I'm paraphrasing there. Several cities seemed to play with this concept around this time. You may recall in a recent video that I talked about Amsterdam trying to do something similar. Naturally, the ringways attracted a lot of opposition, and only a handful of the proposals actually got built. But that was the background against which Ringrail was put forward, as a public transport alternative to
I'm
a
gonna
highly
guess
divisive road proposal.
20,000?
Basically,
That's a
the thing
stupid number.
was
I'm
that
just gonna
London
throw.
had a lot of rail
That's not
routes
based
that
off
were
any research.
underused or
That's just
even
me throwing out a
abandoned.
number.
Even now, we haven't exploited all of them. And several of these motorways would have been running alongside existing railways, which had a very poor service. So the reasoning was, wouldn't it be simpler to just upgrade the railways? It would cost a fraction of the motorways, would require relatively little in terms of demolition and construction, and it would address the problem of traffic congestion by taking cars off the road rather than building more roads. In addition, trains are more energy efficient than cars because
The problem is, I've got Cloud City. That alone is worth like 3k. I've got
40 horsepower to
I've got the Superstar Destroyer. That's worth about what, 700.
per person. It's pretty
I've got the
fine
original
to think of it that way.
UCS
They
Falcon from
envisaged
2007.
joining
That sells for
three
about
rather
600.
quiet, rather
I've
poorly
got
used
the
lines
dropship
together
of
to form a
ATOT. I've got
circular
two of those
route
Republic
around the London
gunships.
suburbs.
I've got
Hence
Chrome
the
Vader.
name
I've got Gold Chrome
Ringrail.
C3PO.
Now,
Honestly, I
Crowther,
have most of the
Vickers
crazy
and Pilling
stuff.
were not the first to come up with this. The MP for Acton, Nigel Spearing, had been making similar proposals since 1965. Despite being 4 square in favour of 4 circles
So,
of
yeah,
asphalt,
probably.
the GLC also had to prepare a report on alternative transport proposals, and an orbital railway was one of those. Crowther, Vickers and Pilling, we'll just call them and their associates the Ringrail Group for now, were what we might term enthusiastic amateurs, academics rather than railway insiders. And by their own admission, they didn't have the background to carry out the kinds of studies that British Rail or the GLC did. Their proposal was this. The line would use the old West London line
Right,
from
what's
Clapham
left to go on
Junction to
this?
Willesden Junction. The first station after Clapham Junction was West Brompton, which at the time
Well,
was
I said an
only
hour and a
underground
half. We're going to be a
station.
little bit over
The
that.
main line station was disused.
Granted, I'm going
Next,
on money
a
like
new
British
station,
pounds.
Earl's Court West. This would have been an interchange with the district branch to Ealing Broadway and Richmond. The Ringrail proposal would have involved closing the branch of the North London line from Willesden Junction to Richmond, so presumably this would have been the replacement. It would also have connected with the Piccadilly line, which at the time was being extended to Heathrow Airport. Next was Shepherd's Bush, which again exists now but did not exist at the time. Shepherd's Bush sits, and presumably would have sat in this version, on the site of the abandoned Uxbridge Road station. Then there was White City, which the report vaguely suggests might have interchange
Again,
with
got to be
Latimer
really
Road
careful
station
with
on the
this,
Hammersmith and City
since
line.
these pieces
Wood Lane
happen to be
station
the
didn't exist
old
back then.
Lego brown colour,
Next, a completely new
and
station
if you
called
guys know what I
Mitre
mean,
Bridge, where
you'll
the
know how
station crossed the
brutal
Great
that
Western
can
Main
be.
Line out of
How
Paddington.
brittle
There
that
actually
Lego
had
colour
been a
is.
Mitre Bridge station in the 1840s that fulfilled much the same function, but the West London line took a different route. Then we'd come to Willesden Junction. The big difference between Willesden Junction Ringrail and Willesden Junction Overground was that the West Coast Main Line platforms at Willesden, which were removed in 1962, would be reinstated to provide a better interchange. Then there's West Hampstead, and following that, Gospel Oak. And here we run into another might have been. These days, London's 3 main airports are Heathrow, Gatwick and Stansted. But before Stansted was set in stone, there were other proposals for a 3rd airport, and the most expensive and most interesting,
Yeah, I kind of guessed
opinion,
that.
was an airport known as Maplin, which would have been built on reclaimed land in the Thames estuary. Prior to 1972, this would have been known as Foulness, which is an awful thing to call an airport. Anyway, this was basically at the bottom of the list. Maybe the Ringrail Group weren't aware of this when they suggested that Gospel Oak could provide interchange for the airport, possibly including customs. The existing Gospel Oak might have been closed and replaced with a station slightly to the south to be named South Gospel Oak. How do they come up with these things?
Hey, how's
Next
it
would have
going?
been Camden Town, and this is quite interesting because it would have required the Northern Line to be rebuilt. God only knows how much this would have cost, but there is a certain sense to it. Camden Town Station has long been a complicated junction station and gets overcrowded. There have been many proposals to rebuild it, but this one suggests completely resiting it somewhere near Camden Road Station. Then we have Vale Royal, which it's suggested would provide interchange with the Piccadilly line and the main line out of King's Cross. This is interesting because here there are 2 abandoned stations that would be reopened. Our
Alright,
Ringrail
I think we're just
station would
about done, but
presumably be
this is the
on
main
or
money
very
bit of
near
the
the
set.
site
I
of
don't want to
Maiden
break this, I've
Lane
got to be
station,
careful.
whose ruins are still visible. But for Piccadilly line interchange, you'd need to reopen York Road Station, a famous and very visible abandoned tube station nearby. Then Highbury and Islington, Hackney Downs and Stratford. Stratford is another station they proposed might be an international terminus for services to Maplin Airport, but like all international stations in Stratford, this one didn't work out. So far, we've more or less followed the route of the Overground, plus or minus a few stations. But here, we divert from the line we got. A key part of
And
the
we're done.
Overground orbital route, indeed the part that started it all,
So,
was the
the
East
X-Wing's
London
obviously
line,
above my
which back
head,
then was part of the
and
London Underground.
we have Yoda's hut. So,
That's
on my
not
display,
part
I'm
of
going to
this
have Yoda
proposal.
in the hut,
Instead, from Stratford, it follows what's
or
now
at the
part of
entrance.
the Docklands Light Railway to Canning Town. Back then, this was still part of the North London line. Next stop is West Ham. Now, Canning Town doesn't show up on the route maps here as a station, but they do provide a station diagram, so presumably it would have been on there. It's not clear what would
Well,
have happened
let's
to the
add this
remainder
to
of
the
the North
display.
London line.
Oh my god, I've been
Canning
sat
Town
down
to
that
North
full
Woolwich.
time. I don't think I
And here we
got up.
get the only
Did I?
completely new section of line. In the form
I
of a
don't
tunnel
think that
under
I
the
did. I
Thames
thought the
from
church.
West
I'm not
Ham to
using it
West
after
Combe
this
Park.
anyway.
This
Ooh.
is referred to
Right,
as the
so,
Angerstein Tunnel. as
was
it
the
would have
set worth
connected with the
buying
freight
after all
only
these years of
Angerstein
wanting
Wharf
it?
branch.
100%
There would have been a
yes.
station at Westcombe Park, then it would have run into Blackheath.
So,
and on
I'll
to
show you
St.
what we
John's
got.
Lewis. Looking to the future, at this time there was a lot of buzz around the Channel Tunnel, as this report believes that
So, the R2-D2 we're just going to throw in there. Also, this X-Wing came first in 04, and then this is the way it looked in 2006 when they brought it back out again.
There's a bit of a problem acknowledged in the report. The lines so far have been underused, but the lines
You can see, I'm going to have to fix this, by the way. You can see the similarities. And of course, up here, I've put Yoda's hut. Have it there at the corner. Those cool for the other sets I've got from the 2000 up here as well. But yeah, I thought that was pretty fun. So look, I'll see you guys, and of course, I suppose the only other thing we've got is Luke's helmet. I'm just gonna place that there. But I'll see you guys in tomorrow's stream. Thank you very much for watching. It's a lot of fun building this. To build something I wanted for so many years. I mean, it's a pretty damn cool set. So yeah, but I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Still, as possible release, they note that the Bakerloo line will be there in 1975, which was optimistic.